The future of Clemson's program and athletics has two questions to answer. One, can Dabo adapt to the transfer portal? And two, will Clemson remain in the ACC? We've talked about Dabo, now let's move on to the second one.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Clemson podcast. Welcome to another episode of the show. My name is John Bivens. You can follow me over here on on Twitter at I am John Bivens. Thanks for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Here on the Locked On Clemson podcast, you're getting three things: all sports, all passion, and all of the time, bringing you everything you need to know about Clemson athletics. Today is Tuesday, May 14th. Today we are going to talk about the future of the ACC with the Clemson and FSU lawsuits and all that. We're also going to talk about what our hopes for the ACC is. What do we want to happen with conference realignment? And lastly, we're going to end the episode with our every week episode or every week segment on Tuesdays of Tracking Tuesdays. It's going to be a great episode. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs help find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right. So we've talked a lot about our players. We've talked a lot about Clemson program and coaching and all this kind of aspect. There's one lingering question that's just on everybody's mind, and that is what in the world is going on with these Clemson and FSU law cases? What are they about? What is everything going on? Like, what are the details of it? I'll be honest, we're studying the case. I'm keeping up with it, and I'm doing everything I can to understand it. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't get all the lumbo-jumbo, but I get the gist of it. I get the main problem of it. And when I dive into it, what I'm seeing is there's two things that they're arguing over. There's two specific things that Clemson and FSU are arguing with ACC about. Number one is they're arguing over the exit fee. So every single conference has to pay every team has to pay the conference they're in a certain amount of money if they want to leave the conference before their contract is up. For instance, Texas and Oklahoma, they left their conference last year and they're joining the SEC this year. They did that 1 year before their contract ended. And because of that 1 year early entrance or early exit, they had to pay $50 million each. Just to join the SEC, they had to pay their old conference $50 million each. A lot of money for 1 year. Clemson and FSU, they're going through and they are looking at the possibility of leaving the ACC. And last year at the spring meetings, which right now the spring meetings are about to kick off, last year at the spring meetings, 7 different ACC schools told the conference and were showing some sign of possibly leaving the conference. Because of that, ACC reminded everyone, hey, y'all are under contract through like 2036. And because of that, if you leave the conference, you will have to pay $140 million. $140 million. That's how much the exit fee is for ACC or any team to leave the ACC. The problem with that is that number is 3 times bigger than the ACC's annual revenue. How much the money ACC brings in, that they're asking 3 times as much for one school to leave early. Ridiculous, right? So that's number one. FSU and Clemson are fighting that to try to get that lowered where they don't have to pay as much to leave the conference. The second thing is all about how much money and how much everything's coming in when it comes to how much money's being brought in and the grant of rights and all that kind of aspect. The main thing it boils down to is this. When Clemson and FSU and most of the ACC schools signed a contract with the ACC, they granted the ACC the rights to their media, which means all their sports games, all their conferences, everything like that. Technically, the ACC schools do not own the rights to present their media to public or to stream it or to get rid of it. ACC owns the rights to put Clemson's football games, then to put them on TV, to put FSU's football basketball games, baseball games onto TV. ACC owns that right, not only now, but through 2036. And so Clemson, like, yeah, we get that when you're a part of the conference, that makes sense. When we exit that, here's the problem. The ACC is saying that even if Clemson, if they show up and they pay $140 million, they leave the conference, the ACC is saying that contract still holds true, where they get the sole rights to stream Clemson games until 2036. Whether or not they're a part of the conference, they're saying that they don't. The ACC would lose. Clemson saying ACC would lose the rights to stream their games if they left the conference. ACC is saying, no, you signed the contract, don't matter if you're in conference or not. We have that grant of rights to your media. We have the grant of rights to stream and produce and put out your games, meaning ACC gets the revenue. ACC gets to dominate, or predominantly the main amount of money that comes from streaming. Those are the big two arguments right now. And when you look at Clemson and FSU, they're both arguing the same thing. There's actually 5 cases going on right now. There's 5 cases that are currently happening right now when it comes to what's happening in regards. The first one is ACC versus Clemson. The second one is FSU, or ACC versus FSU. ACC is suing both schools in the middle of this allegations, in the middle of all that's going on. Then you also have both schools suing the ACC, so Clemson versus ACC, FSU versus ACC. So I know that's weird. I know sometimes it feels like it's the same lawsuit. It's actually different. ACC is the suers in 2 of the cases, and then Clemson and FSU are the suers in the other 2 cases. And then the last one is there is a random governor out there, a state senator, state governor out there suing the ACC, trying to get them to release their relations and their agreement with ESPN on streaming rights and revenue and all that, release that to them to be able to use that for the FSU case. I know that's a lot. I know that's a lot of going on. I just vomited it at the mouth for you. But basically what it boils down to is Clemson and FSU want to be able to leave the conference for a lot less money than $140 or $140 million, because that's extreme. And they also want to be able to, when they leave the conference, take back the rights to their media so that they can give them to another conference. Because let's be real. Say they get out of the conference. Say Clemson leaves the ACC. If they don't have the rights to stream their games and they can't give that to their next conference, say they join the SEC or the Big Ten, if they can't give the rights to their games, they're not providing anything to that new conference. And if that's the case, why would that conference take on another school that's not going to provide any kind of money? If Clemson joins the SEC and ACC is still streaming Clemson games, what does that do for the SEC? Nothing, right? So in order for Clemson, this lawsuit is not only about Clemson and FSU leaving the ACC, it's also about making sure there's a path for them to join the Nets conference. It's not just how they can get out, it's also how they can get into their Nets agreement. Because it doesn't seem like either school wants to go the Notre Dame route, be independent. It doesn't seem like that's the route. Both of these schools want to find new homes, it seems, and they're not going to be able to do that if ACC still has the streaming rights. So that's the really bullet point, spark notes, cliffhanger, cliff notes, whatever version you want to call it, of these lawsuits. The biggest difference between them, and a lot of people are asking, well, what's the difference in Clemson and FSU's lawsuits? They're almost identical. The only difference is really how they handled it. FSU came out guns a-blazing. I watched a FSU podcast. I was listening to it the other day, and the guy referred it to good cop, bad cop, where FSU is coming out. They're the bad cop against ACC. They're guns a-blazing. They're screaming. They've been out front with everything. They've started back in December. Like, this has been an ongoing, long process, battling out in front of everybody. Clemson is more the good cop. They're more behind the scenes. They've been quieter. They didn't put it out till March. They've been handling everything in the courts. They haven't put a lot out of press about it. You haven't heard a lot of the players or coaches or athletic director talking about this a lot. So FSU's been like boom, 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 guns a-blazing. Clemson has been more under the radar, trying to remain calm, remain cool, remain collective in the process of it. Personally, I really like Clemson's methods. I think that's great, but I think that FSU, it's good to have that there because it keeps the focus up. So that's the basis of the lawsuit. This lawsuit is, one hand, you got people saying they signed the contract. As ridiculous as it is, they looked at that number, said $140 million, that's a fee, and they signed it. They signed over their rights to streaming their games and all that back in 2013 for 23 years. That's their own fault. They signed the contract. Other people are like, no one expected the game to grow to where it is today. No one expected these two schools to have the momentum and to have the national recognition that both these schools had, and that the terms of the agreement has changed based on the revenue and based on the potential, based on the popularity of these two schools. So there's both, it lands on both sides of the game, right? They're both fences, both ACC and the schools have valid arguments on their side. So it's really, this is a huge case. These cases could determine the future for college football and for college sports as a whole, for the NCAA, for ACC, for all of it. These are really huge cases, and so that's the basis of it. We're going to bring you more up to speed as things continue to progress. I believe the next court date for Clemson is July 2nd, so between now and then, we'll give you more details all about that. But those two, that's where the cases are. Those are really short Spark Notes edition of what these cases are. In just a moment, we're going to talk about, with the ACC changing, what do we want to happen? What do we want for a conference realignment? We'll talk about that and so much more in just a moment. When you're hiring for your small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. In my personal experience, I've been able to use LinkedIn Jobs in two different aspects, as the employer and as the applicant. And in both ways, LinkedIn makes it so simple for both sides, and it amazingly bridges the gap between employer and applicant. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong spot. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You post a job, 24 hours, you're getting a candidate. Hire professionals like a professional over on LinkedIn. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. We appreciate the sponsors right there. So, with the lawsuits going on, as we talked about, this could be a huge difference. This should be a huge change for the conference. And so let's say worst case scenario breaks down. FSU and Clemson leaves the conference. They join somewhere else. What do we want to happen? What is our guys? Do we want, as Locked On Clemson, as John Bivens, do I want that to happen? Do I want the ACC to split up? Let's be real. The ACC is special. It's historical. It's something that when you talk about college sports, no matter if you're in California or North Carolina or another country, when you talk about college sports, ACC was something that pops up. I know recent years it feels like, oh, the SEC's better, Big Ten's better, Big 12's better. I've seen people saying the Pac-12's better. Well, what's the Pac-12? Sorry, too soon? Too soon? I apologize. My bad. But anyway, the ACC is historical. Basketball, the ACC conference is one of the best basketball tournaments of all time. It's more exciting every single year. Football, you have ACC football. It's electric. It's electric. I know recently we've really only had that success from Florida State and Clemson in the past decade or two, but it's electric no matter top to bottom. It's fun to watch. Teams are progressing. People are like, oh, look at Georgia Tech. They didn't throw a pass till 2021. Oh, shut up. Every conference has something negative. It's okay. They're progressing. But in reality, ACC is special. It's something that memories are held. You think of the Jimmy V's. You think of the Dick Vitale's rooting for Duke. You think of these programs. You think of Roy Williams, Coach K, Dean Smith. You think of these amazing programs. They all stem back to the ACC. Think about the best college basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan, ACC, right? You think about the biggest rivalry in all of sports, Duke UNC, biggest rivalry, right? There's ACC is special. So I don't want it to go away. I would love for it to stay the same. Give the rights out. We have 4 conferences. Break the conference rights up. The money coming into each conference, break that up equally. Enough of this SEC and Big Ten getting like almost 3/4 of the total revenue for all of watching. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. Break this up a little bit more. Make it some more smooth. But worst case, let's say that can't happen. Worst case, the ACC falls apart. What do we want to happen? Do we want this super conference? If you haven't heard about it, a lot of people are wanting this super conference where pretty much every good school in football joins one football super conference, and the other schools that are better at basketball joins one basketball super conference, and that's what they play in. That's how it works. I don't want that. That is garbage. Hot garbage, flaming hot garbage, trash. Can't stand that. That might be me talking to someone that can't stand people that pull for two different schools and different things. It's not that I can't stand them, but it might be me. I'm more of a guy that pick a school and stick with them. But we don't want that. We don't want the super conferences. Here's my proposal. You ready? Commissioner of the NCAA sports, whatever you want to, whoever's listening, here's my hot take. Here's what I think should happen. I think if these conferences, the Power Four conferences break down and we lose what modern conferences are for college football, for college sports, here's how we should do it. We should treat it like the Premier League and like English soccer. Hot take? All right, here's what I mean. Take every single D1 FBS school, divide them into a total of 9 or 15 leagues. 15 leagues, right? You got 15 leagues. Even if you want to go 12, that's fine. How many leagues isn't important, but you divide them into 3 tiers. You have tier 1, which is your top schools. These are Power 4 schools, independent schools that have potential every year for playing some kind of high-level competition. Tier 2, that's like in between. They could play up, they could play down, depends on the year. And then Tier 3, not trying to be disrespectful to anybody, but they're schools that aren't as good as the other two, not on the same level. That's Tier 3. In those 3, you divide them up into different sections, whether it's keep it with the Power 4. Let's just keep it with Power 4 for now. You got ACC, SEC, Big 12, Big 10. You got those 4. The ACC, we're going to focus on that because ACC's right. We're the best, right? You break up the ACC into those 3 tiers. You got your top tier, that's League 1. Your middle tier, that's Tier 2. Then bottom tier, that's Tier 3. Those have your teams in it. Those have your different teams from all across all of FBS. There's no more Power 4. It's only 4 conferences broken up into 3 tiers. So one conference, one of the 4 could have 45 teams in it. Could have a lot, but it's 3 different tiers, right? It'd be 15 teams each, or however the math works out. And then at the end of each year, the bottom 2 teams in Tier 1 and Tier 2, if the bottom 2 tiers of each team are relegated into the bottom 2 tiers. So Tier 1, the worst 2 teams, say it was Syracuse and Pittsburgh, they would go to Tier 2. The bottom 2 teams of Tier 2, say it was, 2 smaller schools, UNC Pembroke and whoever, 2 smaller schools, UNC Upstate and Furman, would go down to Tier 3. So you get relegated, and that creates excitement. And then also with that, you got to switch them out with someone. So the top 2 teams at the end of it, the conference champion and the conference runner-up champion of each tier, then get promoted into the tiers above them. So the champion of Tier 2 and the runner-up from Tier 2 go to Tier 1. The champion of Tier 3 and the runner-up Tier 3 go to Tier 2. Can you I know that sounds weird. Just imagine that with me. Take some time to imagine this. Imagine watching the last game of the season and your team is having an off year. Say your team's having one of those years that's just, right? Terrible, right? But if you win this game, you get to stay in Tier 1. If you lose, you have to go to Tier 2. Can you imagine the intense of watching that game? Every single game would matter. It'd be a national championship all throughout the tiers. Conference champions would mean so much more in Tier 2, Tier 3. It provides excitement and it provides a necessity. It creates an atmosphere where every game matters. Not this, we've already lost 3 games this season. We're competing for a bowl game, but that's about it. No. You're fighting for a spot in your tier. You're fighting for a spot to continue competing at the level you're competing. Or can you imagine 2 of the smaller schools in Tier 3 coming in late November and they're fighting for a spot to be able to move up into the next tier? Oh my gosh, electric. I don't know if y'all are soccer fans. Watching some of those conferences and the Premier League and the lower leagues in English soccer, seeing them fight for that spot to move up, seeing them fight for that spot to either be promoted or relegated, electric. If you're a Ted Lasso fan, watch Ted Lasso. You see the energy. You see the disappointment. You see how much every single game matters. I think it creates a whole new feel. It creates a whole new system. It creates a whole new vibe. And I know some of you are like, that's really weird. It is weird. I'm not going to give that. It's weird. But gosh, that would be so much fun. I love the ACC. I'm a big fan of the ACC. Realistically, I hope it stays the exact same. I would pick that alignment over how the conferences are currently set up. I just think that would create so much more excitement. The playoffs, the bowl games, there's a world where you could turn the bowl games into promotion and relegation and relegating and promoted through different tiers. There's so many creative ways you could take this. There's so many different ways you could truly spin this in order to be more exciting, create that environment, create that energy, create that just aspect where it's just all about excitement across all the sports. So that's our goal. That's here on John Bivens, the Locked On Clemson podcast. That's what I think should happen. That's my opinion. I cannot take credit for that. That is, saw that take a couple times on Twitter, different variations, different versions of it. So I've took a couple people what I've seen on Twitter and then compiled it into mine. I did not create that. That is not my own thoughts. It's just my take. I love it. I love whoever put that out. I tried to find it on Twitter, but I couldn't really, I couldn't identify the original source of it, so I can't give you credit, but gosh, that I would love to see that. Sign me up right now to watch that. That would be amazing. But here in just a minute, we're going to switch on from this talk. It's about the lawsuits and ACC format and reconference realignment and all that kind of stuff. In just a moment after this ad, we're going to go through and we're going to talk about our Tracking Tuesday, where we're going to break through the newest recruit news when it comes to Clemson sports. We'll be back in 1 minute. NBA playoffs are in full swing, and as you can tell, I'm a big Denver Nuggets fan. I like it. Hunter Tyson's over there playing, and they're playing real well now, right? I've always wanted to go to Denver game. In the Mile High City, how special would that be? If I ever do, I know where I'm buying tickets. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. We all know Denver's going to do well, right? They started off a little slow against Minnesota, but they're picking it back up, even the series back. I'd love to go see Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray go and play and working well together. Some of my favorite things about Gametime are I love the fact that you get 60% off when you're buying last-minute tickets. I also love that the fact you get every single seat you can see before you buy it, a panoramic view, so you know exactly what you're getting when you buy it. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDCO or ONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And we're here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, so now it's time. Every week, every day, we have a different segment, right? Yesterday, Momentum Monday. Wednesdays are our Worried Wednesdays. We've got our Turbulent Thursdays. We've got Flashback Fridays. Every day, we've got some kind of episode, and that's how we end our episodes. Well, today we have Tracking Tuesday. What this is we just give you the up to speed. We keep you up to date with the newest recruits, with the newest transfers, or not with football, but the newest transfers, the newest prospects, and what's going on. And so today we want to give you 3 big updates, 2 on football and 1 on basketball. We just want to provide some updates for you over there. Number 1 is when it comes to these, we have 2 big newses. 2 big news when it comes to Clemson football. Today this week we had 2 different freshman mid-roll and mid-year enrollees, enroll in Clemson and officially move in. Darian Mayo, who is a 4-star defensive end, has officially enrolled and has moved on. He moved in on Monday this week, so yesterday he moved into Clemson. He's also joined by TJ Moore, a wide receiver 5-star that's really exciting to be able to watch. He's enrolled and arrived on campus over the weekend. There's also a linebacker, CJ Kuba Taylor. He's enrolled, but he hasn't moved in yet. Hey, seeing Mayo and seeing Moore move in, that's exciting. I'm so glad they're moving in. And what's crazy is they're a couple weeks before summer camp starts. So they're moving in, giving them time to get adjusted to the program, giving them time to work in the strength and conditioning, build up those muscles, get in the habit, get in the rhythm of what it means to be a Clemson Tiger living on campus, playing football. And so I'm excited. They're moving in. They are moved in, ready to get started. Darian C. Mayo, you can follow him over on Twitter at the DC Mayo over on Twitter. Hey, he posted today or yesterday about 10:30. He said, said move-in day. He's excited. He's 6'7", 256 pounds. He's out of Maryland. He's ranked the number 114 overall, number 10th amongst defensive ends. We're excited about him. He's a player to be excited about overall. I think he's going to make an impact. Defensive line university, right? Dabo knows how to get him. He don't need to transfer for defensive line. We're excited about that. TJ Moore, Terrence TJ Moore Jr., the wide receiver 5-star, he actually moved in on the 11th. So he moved it in on Saturday. He's just as excited. He's a 6'3". He's already pushing 200 before he's even entered the strength and conditioning program. So excited to be able to see that. Excited to see him getting excited about this program, having another tall, big receiver. TJ Moore kind of reminds me of a T. Higgins almost. Got that bigger frame. Excited to see the impact he can make. I'm really excited about the future. Looking at this Clemson wide receiver program, we talked a lot about Bryant Wesco, who's going to be electric. I think he's going to be excellent wide receiver 1. TJ Moore has potential to push him for that. He's going to be a wide receiver 2 in the next couple years. He's someone to keep watch on, keep a focus on. He's a good player. So excited about those 2 players moving in, getting started. Officially with Clemson Tigers, signed, enrolled, moving on campus. Excited to see about that. So great news for Clemson football. Can't get transfers, but Dabo can get prospects. Now we move on to another sport, Tracking Tuesday. We don't just cover football, we cover all sports. We have a big time visit right now happening for Clemson basketball. Clemson has already brought in 3 transfers. They brought in the big man, Locken from Cincinnati. They brought in the shooting guard from Boston College in that trade with Josh Beadle. And now we also brought in Christian Reeves from Duke. Now there is a 4th possible transfer taking a visit right now to Clemson this week. He's getting on site. He's coming to campus, and he's coming to visit Clemson this week. He's a graduate transfer, so it would only be for 1 year. But we have Miles Foster, who is looking over. He's looking at transferring over. Really excited about that, from Illinois State. He's looking at a couple of different schools. Right now he's heard from Florida State. He's heard from USC, from Florida, Virginia, and Clemson. So hopefully we can get him. He'd be a huge addition to the floor. He's a center, a little bit smaller size center, but last year he averaged 12 points, 8 rebounds, and shot 52% from the floor. Really excited about him. I think if we get him, it really fills that hole of PJ Hall leaving, because he's gone. PJ's not coming back. He's going to get drafted. That's known. Chase Hunter still might come back, but PJ Hall, he's probably gone. Getting Miles Foster to part him with Locken and Christian Reeves, oh, that'd be huge. That'd be a big-time addition for Brad Brunell, showing he's going to continue to transfer, showing Clemson basketball, not a one-year thing. It's consistently going to be there. So exciting to see. Those are your Tracking Tuesday, your updates for our transfers and our prospects, all those recruits here on this fine Tuesday day. So that is all that we have for Tracking Tuesday, and that is going to wrap up this edition for the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, tomorrow's episode, we're going to have a special guest. We're going to be joined from Michael over at Duke Blue Central, podcast all about Duke basketball. He's going to be joining us tomorrow, and we're going to break down Christian Reeves, talking what his addition to Clemson will mean. We're excited about that. But let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think is going to happen? What's your thoughts on our ACC plan? Our plan on the whole conference realignment? How do you think about that? You for promotion relegation system, or do you like the more typical traditional style, or are you a super conference person? Let us know your thoughts. Let us know all that kind of aspect and everything about that. We'd love to hear your thoughts over on Twitter at I am John Bivens. Drop a comment in YouTube if you're watching over there. Email us at thetigerwire@gmail.com. I'd love to hear feedback on all that we've talked about. If you haven't, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're watching us over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. That would help us a lot. That way every day that we can be your first listen here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. We can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode. Until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring, and as always, go Tigers.